biggest secret in venture capital is that the best investment in a successful fund equals or outperforms the entire rest of the fund combined. The conclusion he draws from this is that any decent fund must follow two rules, a little like the ones from Fight Club. 1. Only invest in companies that have the potential to return the value of the entire fund. And 2, because rule number 1 is so restrictive, there can't be any other rules. Thiel's book is a guide to seeking out creative monopoly businesses, those that build and corner a market, enriching themselves and their founders, who can then, in Thiel's vision, invest in further innovation. This is the point of the marriage between venture capital and technology, to remake the world over and over and over. Companies were encouraged to seek growth at all costs and worry about profitability later. Not an unheard of strategy, but one that could now be pushed to new extremes. Uber could burn through billions in cash for about 15 years, bending the market, smashing local regulations and monopolies, altering consumer behavior in the process, and then go public at an $82.4 billion valuation while losing $800 million a quarter. WeWork could lose billions of dollars a quarter, buying up and renovating commercial real estate in 39 countries, all in an effort to remake office space in the image of the venture-backed startup. Flexible, open, ready to scale, treats all over, never turn a profit, and declare bankruptcy last year. This rampant spending was visible everywhere, resulting in what the Times technology columnist Kevin Roose has called the millennial lifestyle subsidy. On-demand drivers, food delivery, maid services, car rentals, home rentals, all sold at a loss using venture cash while trying to achieve liftoff. This is how millennials came to live like a bunch of little Raskolnikovs, seemingly destitute, but somehow with access to servants. And maybe it's worth thinking of those peak TV years as a cultural version of the same phenomenon, another byproduct of a corporate battle over new terrain opened up by computer technology. Netflix is unusual even when compared with the other streaming companies, a zebra among horses, as the media studies professor Amanda D. Lotz puts it in her 2022 book, Netflix and Streaming Video. Apple TV Plus and Amazon Prime Video are corporate complements to massive technology businesses. Paramount Plus, Peacock, and Disney Plus are extensions of legacy entertainment studios and tap into and leverage their considerable intellectual property wealth. Max is a Frankenstein hybrid of Netflix's closest living ancestor, HBO, sutured together with maybe a dozen high-on-the-dial cable channels. Netflix is the purest expression of the streaming model, and the force that summoned the others over the ledge. Netflix's vast library changed the business of television, in part by making a better product and showing the rest of the industry that it had to follow suit. But it also changed the very nature of television. TV once had the single, oppressive goal of amusing as many people as possible at the same time, which is also what made it so stupid. Television is the way it is, David Foster Wallace wrote in 1993, simply because people tend to be really similar in their vulgar and prurient and stupid interests, and wildly different in their refined and moral and intelligent interests. The SVOD model, streaming video on demand, liberated TV from the law of averages and the prison of time, and made it seem as if our refined, moral, and intelligent interests might now be found on the other side of the screen. Lotz argues that by freeing itself from the core goal of linear television, selling an assembled audience to advertisers, the streaming model completely changes the calculus of programming. That's because instead of building an audience, Lotz writes, on-demand delivery allows SVODs to build audiences. Lotz pointed out to me a seemingly banal but actually profound and strange experience that has become common in this era. You go to an Airbnb and turn on the TV, already open to someone else's account, and you see all this stuff you didn't even know existed. Same TV, same app, same subscription. The house might even feel similar to your own, but the screen gives way to an alien world. In December of last year, Netflix provided an unprecedented map of its library by releasing a comprehensive look at its viewer data for the very first time. It comes as an Excel file, less than a megabyte, and ranks 18,214 pieces of content in Netflix's gargantuan library by the number of hours viewed during the first 6 months of 2023, rounded to the nearest 100,000. In fact, this rounding means that it doesn't even capture the entirety of the thing, because Netflix excluded titles with fewer than 50,000 viewer hours. At the top was The Night Agent, a sub-Clancy quality thriller about an FBI guy with more than 812 million hours viewed. At the bottom was My Teacher, Mr. Kim, a South Korean comedy from 2003 with 100,000 hours, though this placement is an artifact of Excel's sorting through the vastness of the catalog. Roughly the last 4,000 entries all have 100,000 hours viewed. This is as low as the scale goes, and are arranged alphabetically. Thanks to Netflix's considerable international offerings, the bottom of the 100,000 hour club fills up with titles in other alphabets: Arabic, Japanese, Korean. Outside the very top, which is dominated by Netflix originals and kids' movies, it's not totally clear why anything winds up anywhere. Why is Memento down in the 300,000 hours ghetto, while Coach Carter has 21 million viewer hours? Perhaps Memento was only available in, say, Slovakia. Or maybe it got bad placement in the app. Or maybe it never triggered whatever algorithmic cultural tripwire turns back catalog titles into contemporary hits. The chart doesn't say. And to scan through it is to appreciate how the library's sheer size has heightened the importance of chance in our consumption habits. Your view into the catalog may feel like a grand vista, but in actuality, you are peering through a keyhole. When I open up Netflix on my TV, I am immediately met with a carousel of 75 shows and movies new on Netflix, then the top 10 TV shows in the US today. Beneath that, a carousel of another 75 suggestions because you watched Rebel Ridge. Beyond that, an algorithmic selection of 33 today's top picks for you. Then, binge-worthy TV dramas, 75 of them. Then there's Your Next Watch, a combination of stuff my kid watches and stuff I might, 75 more. Next, the last 10 things we didn't finish. Then, a list of 75 more titles because I watched Shot Caller. Beyond that, no fewer than 30 more carousels of about 75 titles each. That's a whole lot of TV, but it's still just a small slice of the catalog. What we're paying for, in the end, is not any one show, or any 3 or 10 or 50 shows, but rather this fathomless sense of abundance, which in turn means that any given show just doesn't matter quite as much as it could in the era of broadcast TV. In this context, even an undeniable hit can wind up feeling like a sort of failure. Take Triple Frontier, the 2019 action thriller starring Ben Affleck and Oscar Isaac. It was one of the platform's most popular movies that year, but as Lodes points out in her book, that doesn't mean it's any more valuable to the company. A $115 million movie budget is hard for Netflix to justify at almost any level of viewership, given that at the end of the day, it supplies just 2 hours of content for a subscriber base that's paying for a sense of infinity. And indeed, Lotes' skepticism was confirmed. Ted Sarandos, the company's chief content officer, reportedly singled out the title in an internal meeting, calling for a better calibration between budget and audience. This was in the middle of 2019, when the financial press was starting to ask questions about the sustainability of Netflix's debt-financed growth. Matt Stoller, the anti-monopolist writer, cited the same story in a blog post about Hollywood's travails. His theory was that Hollywood has gotten so big that it can't even discover what people really want anymore. As a contrast, he cites the success of Back to the Future, an odd movie that became an enormous hit, eventually earning hundreds of millions. But as Stoller points out, in 1985, this happened slowly. It opened small in July, in about 1,400 theaters, and crept up to 1,550 theaters by the end of August, staying in at least 1,000 theaters until the Christmas season. A big-budget Hollywood movie released today typically opens in about 4,000 theaters and is gone in a few weeks. The movie, Stoller writes, was put into a market, where information circulated among buyers and sellers. There was a constant interplay between the art and the audience, and the middlemen, that determined its reach and legitimacy. Now, in Stoller's eyes, the public is instead subject to something like content gavage, delivered 4,000 theaters at a time. The situation is more dramatic in streaming, where the churn rate, the number of people canceling their subscriptions, is what really affects the bottom line, at least at Netflix.